My heart was pounding, my palms were sweaty, and the 3 simple English words I needed to say felt like a physical barrier I could not cross. This single moment of fear, repeated over years, was the invisible wall standing between me and the English fluency I desperately wanted. If you have ever felt that same frustrating paralysis, that voice in your head telling you to wait until you are perfect, then you have already met the first of the 4 silent saboteurs that hold millions of English learners captive. I am going to guide you through unmasking each one of them, not with complex theories, but with a clear map that reveals why your hard work has not been paying off and exactly how to change that, starting today. The journey to unlocking a new language is often pictured wrong. We imagine it as a straight path of accumulating knowledge, where we collect new words and grammar rules until one day we are fluent. The reality is far more personal and much less linear. For a long time, I was my own biggest obstacle. I studied diligently, I consumed English media, and I could understand a great deal, yet when the moment to speak arrived, a mental gate slammed shut. I was not alone in this struggle. I have since discovered through extensive research and conversations with language experts that there are 4 fundamental traps that consistently derail adult learners. These are not failures of intelligence or effort, but rather misalignments in our approach, deeply rooted in our fears and misconceptions. The first of these traps, the one that held me back for the longest time, is the fear of speaking. This is not just simple nervousness. It is a deep-seated anxiety that transforms the simple act of communication into a high-stakes performance where every mistake feels like a public failure. Your mind becomes a hypercritical editor, scrutinizing every potential word before it can even leave your lips. You mentally check the verb tenses, you second-guess your vocabulary choice, you worry about your accent sounding foolish, and you imagine the confused or judgmental look on the listener's face. This internal process happens in seconds, but it is enough to make you hesitate, to stay silent, and to let the conversation move on without you. The opportunity vanishes, and with it, a little piece of your confidence erodes. This trap is particularly dangerous because it disguises itself as dedication. You tell yourself you are not ready yet, that you need to study more vocabulary or master a few more grammar rules before you can possibly attempt a real conversation. So, you retreat back to the safety of passive learning, accumulating more and more knowledge that remains trapped inside your head. You become a library of English that never lends out its books. You can understand nearly everything you hear and read, but the crucial skill of production, of actively forming sentences and expressing your thoughts, remains dormant and underdeveloped. This creates a frustrating imbalance where your comprehension level is high, but your speaking ability is stuck at a beginner level, and this gap can persist for years if left unaddressed. The way out of this first trap begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. You must stop viewing mistakes as evidence of failure and start seeing them as the most valuable data points on your learning journey. Every error you make is a tiny, flashing arrow pointing directly at exactly what you need to practice next. It is free, personalized feedback that you receive in real time. Consider native speakers. They make linguistic mistakes constantly, using slang, inventing words, and using improper grammar in casual settings. The crucial difference is that they do not let these imperfections stop the flow of their communication. Their primary goal is connection, not perfection. This is the mindset we must adopt. So, how do we practically implement this new mindset? We start by creating what I call safe practice zones. These are low-pressure environments where the sole objective is to communicate, not to be perfect. Your goal is to get your message across, however messy the process might be. One powerful method is to set a tiny, daily speaking goal that focuses solely on output. This could be recording a 2-minute voice memo on your phone describing your day, writing 2 comments in English on a social media post, or simply narrating your actions to yourself while you prepare a meal. The content is irrelevant, the act of producing English is everything. In these safe zones, give yourself explicit permission to make mistakes. In fact, aim to make them. When you do, instead of feeling shame, get curious. Ask yourself, what did that error teach me? Did I use the wrong tense? Did I misuse a preposition? This transforms the mistake from a personal failure into a puzzle piece in your larger learning picture. Start with the simplest topics imaginable. Describe the objects in your room. Talk about what you had for breakfast. Explain your plan for the afternoon. Use the basic vocabulary and simple sentence structures you are most confident with. The focus is on building the muscle memory of speech and breaking the psychological association between speaking English and experiencing anxiety. Think of speaking not as a test of your knowledge, but as a physical skill. You would not expect to learn how to swim by only reading a book about swimming techniques. You must get in the water, flail your arms, swallow some water, and gradually, your body learns the movements. Language is the same. Your mouth, your tongue, and your vocal cords need to practice the unique movements and sounds of English. Reading and listening are the theoretical preparation, but speaking is the practical training where true fluency is built. Therefore, you must create opportunities for this physical practice every single day. Read a paragraph from a book out loud, focusing on the rhythm and flow of the sentences. Shadow a podcast by repeating sentences just after you hear them. Talk to your reflection in the mirror. These small, consistent acts of courage are what will systematically dismantle the first and most damaging trap, the fear of speaking. The second formidable trap that ensnares countless eager learners is the grammar obsession trap. This is the belief that fluency is a puzzle that can be solved by mastering every single grammatical rule. Students who fall into this trap devote years to memorizing complex conditionals, intricate prepositional phrases, and every exception to the rule. They approach English with the mindset of a computer programmer, trying to code perfect sentences in their head before uttering them. While grammar provides the necessary structure for a language, treating it as the ultimate goal creates a significant bottleneck in your ability to communicate spontaneously and naturally. The problem with overanalyzing grammar in real-time conversation is that it forces your brain to operate in a slow, deliberate mode, when speaking requires speed and automaticity. In the middle of a sentence, you pause to consider whether you need the present perfect or the past simple tense. You hesitate because you are unsure if you should use a or the. This constant internal calculation destroys the natural rhythm of dialogue and makes you sound hesitant and unsure, even when your knowledge is extensive. You become so focused on the technical correctness of each tree that you lose sight of the entire forest, the actual conversation you are trying to have. Consider for a moment how children achieve fluency in their first language. They do not spend their early years diagramming sentences or studying textbooks. They learn through immersion and pattern recognition. They listen, they imitate, they make thousands of errors, and gradually, their brain internalizes a natural sense of what sounds right and what sounds wrong. This intuitive grasp of language is what allows native speakers to communicate effectively, even if they cannot articulate the grammatical rule they are using. As adult learners, we possess the same capacity for pattern recognition, but we often disable it by prioritizing intellectual analysis over intuitive practice. The most effective English communicators are not necessarily the walking grammar encyclopedias, they are the ones who have mastered the art of connection. They understand that the primary purpose of language is to share ideas, feelings, and information. They prioritize clarity and effectiveness over technical perfection. This is not an argument to abandon grammar entirely, but rather to learn it through a more organic and effective method. Instead of studying rules in isolation, shift your focus to noticing how grammar is used in authentic contexts. When you watch a movie or listen to a conversation, pay close attention to the verb tenses people use when telling stories about their past. Notice the common sentence structures used in everyday situations. Observe the prepositions that naturally follow certain verbs. This method of grammar spotting embeds the rules in your mind within a framework of real meaning and usage, making them far easier to recall and apply when you speak. Your goal should be to develop a feel for the language, a musical ear for its rhythm and flow. Focus your energy on mastering the grammatical structures that form the backbone of daily communication. The simple past and present tenses, basic prepositions, and common sentence patterns will serve you in 90% of your interactions. The more complex, conditional, or passive structures can be integrated later, as your confidence grows. Furthermore, practice grammar through active production. When you learn a new rule, do not just read examples, immediately write 5 original sentences using it or try to incorporate it into your next speaking practice. This active application moves the knowledge from your passive understanding to your active command, which is the true key to fluency. The third trap, and perhaps the most emotionally draining, is the comparison trap. This is the silent thief of joy and motivation in your language learning journey. It manifests when you constantly measure your own abilities against those of other learners. You hear a colleague speak fluently in a meeting, or you watch a polished polyglot on social media, and a wave of inadequacy washes over you. You think, "I will never be that good," and your motivation plummets. This trap is especially vicious in the age of social media, where you are presented with curated highlights of everyone's success, without any of the struggle, the years of effort, or the countless mistakes that preceded it. You see the final, polished product and compare it to your own messy, ongoing process. This creates a destructive cycle. The negative feelings from comparison drain your motivation to study and practice. With reduced practice, your progress naturally slows, which then seems to confirm your initial belief that you are not capable, further deepening your discouragement. It is a downward spiral that has led many capable learners to abandon their goals entirely, convinced they simply lack a special talent for languages. The fundamental truth you must internalize is that learning English is a personal journey, not a competitive race. Every single learner is starting from a different point, with different resources, different amounts of time to dedicate, different native languages that influence their learning, and different personal goals. The colleague who speaks fluently may have lived abroad for a year. The polyglot on YouTube may dedicate 8 hours a day to language study as their job. Their journey has no bearing on your own unique path. The antidote to the comparison trap is to become the author of your own success story. This means defining what fluency means to you personally. Is it being able to comfortably navigate a vacation abroad? Is it confidently presenting in a business meeting? Is it understanding your favorite films without subtitles? Your goals are yours alone, and your progress should be measured only against your own starting line and your own destination. Make these goals specific and personal, and you will rob comparison of its power. A highly effective technique to solidify this mindset is to maintain a progress journal. This is not a diary of your failures, but a dedicated record of your victories, no matter how small. Every day, write down one thing you accomplished in English. It could be a new word you successfully used in a sentence, a 5-minute conversation you had without switching back to your native language, or a song lyric you finally understood. When you feel the discouragement of comparison creeping in, you can open this journal and see the tangible evidence of your journey. You will see a timeline of your own improvement, which is far more motivating and relevant than anyone else's highlight reel. It is also crucial to understand and embrace your unique learning style. Everyone has natural strengths and weaknesses. You might struggle with pronunciation but have a fantastic memory for vocabulary. Another learner might speak fluently but make frequent grammar errors. This does not make one of you a better learner, it simply makes you different. Identify your strengths and use them to build your confidence. Simultaneously, acknowledge your weaker areas and dedicate focused, compassionate practice to them, without using them as a weapon against your self-esteem. Remember, the race is only with yourself. The fourth and final trap is so seductive because it feels incredibly productive. This is the passive learning trap. This occurs when the vast majority of your learning time is spent consuming English content, watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, reading articles and books, without a balanced, dedicated effort to actively produce the language through speaking and writing. You are building your comprehension skills impressively, but you are not training your production skills. You are becoming a masterful listener and a silent scholar. This is like someone who wants to become a master chef spending all their time watching cooking shows, reading recipe books, and learning about techniques, but never actually stepping into the kitchen to chop an onion or light a stove. Their theoretical knowledge may be immense, but they lack the practical skill to create a meal. Similarly, passive learning builds your input, but it is active practice that builds your output. The ability to understand a complex sentence is a different neurological process from the ability to construct one spontaneously in conversation. The solution is not to stop passive learning, it is far too valuable for acquiring new vocabulary and getting a feel for the language's rhythm. The solution is to deliberately and systematically pair it with active practice. You must create a bridge that allows the knowledge you absorb passively to cross over into your active skill set. This requires a conscious shift in your routine. For every hour you spend in passive consumption, you should dedicate a portion of that time, even if it is just 10 or 15 minutes, to active use. One powerful method for doing this is the echo method. After you listen to a segment of a podcast or watch a segment of a video, press pause. Then, not by repeating it word for word like a parrot, but by summarizing what you just heard in your own words. This forces your brain to do the critical work of processing the information, selecting relevant vocabulary, and constructing original sentences to convey the meaning. It is a full-cycle workout for your language brain, moving seamlessly from input to output. Another excellent technique is the summary method. After you finish reading a news article or a blog post, close the tab and write a short paragraph summarizing the main points. This practice is invaluable because it trains you to organize your thoughts in English and use new vocabulary in a proper context, moving words from your recognition memory to your active recall memory. It builds the mental muscles needed for writing essays, emails, and reports in English. The key is to transform your passive activities into active learning sessions. Instead of just watching a movie, you can pause and repeat interesting lines of dialogue, focusing on the actor's pronunciation and intonation. Instead of just scrolling through social media, you can write a comment in English expressing your opinion on the post. The goal is to break the cycle of pure consumption and insert moments of creation throughout your learning day. I want to share a phrase with you that has become a personal mantra, one that I return to whenever I feel frustrated by the gap between my current abilities and my goals. This phrase is a gentle but powerful reminder that redefines the entire purpose of our practice. Our phrase of the day is this: practice makes progress, not perfection. Let that sink in for a moment. Practice makes progress, not perfection. So many of us carry the heavy burden of perfection, believing that every sentence must be flawless, every pronunciation must be native-like, and every grammar rule must be perfectly obeyed. This unrealistic standard is what fuels the fear of speaking and the grammar obsession trap. This phrase liberates us from that burden. It shifts the goal from an unattainable endpoint to a continuous, rewarding journey of improvement. Each time you practice, you are not failing to be perfect, you are succeeding in getting a little better. Each mistake is not a step away from perfection, it is a step forward in your progress, because it provides a clear lesson. You can use this phrase as a personal affirmation. Before you start a conversation in English, tell yourself, practice makes progress, not perfection. When you notice yourself hesitating because a sentence isn't ideal, remind yourself, the goal is progress, not perfection. You can also use it to encourage fellow learners. If you are in a language exchange and your partner apologizes for a mistake, you can smile and say, "It's okay, remember, practice makes progress, not perfection." This philosophy creates a supportive, low-pressure environment where real learning can thrive. Now, let us bring all of these concepts together into a clear and actionable plan. We have identified the 4 major traps: the fear of speaking, the grammar obsession trap, the comparison trap, and the passive learning trap. Understanding them is the first battle, but the war is won through consistent, deliberate action. The true transformation of your English journey begins not just with knowledge, but with the application of that knowledge. It starts with a conscious decision to change one thing today. I want you to take a moment of self-reflection. Look at these 4 traps and identify the one that resonates most deeply with you. Which one feels most familiar? Is it the heart-pounding anxiety that stops you from speaking? Is it the endless cycle of grammar study that never seems to translate into fluent speech? Is it the discouragement you feel when comparing yourself to others? Or is it the comfortable but ineffective routine of only listening and reading without actively producing the language? Choose one. Just one. This week, your mission is to declare war on that single trap. If you chose the fear of speaking, your goal is not to become a flawless speaker, it is to speak for 2 minutes every day in a safe, private space. If you chose the grammar obsession trap, your goal is to have one 5-minute conversation where you forbid yourself from self-correcting any grammar mistakes. If you chose the comparison trap, your goal is to write down 3 things you did well in English each day in your progress journal. If you chose the passive learning trap, your goal is to actively summarize the next podcast you listen to, out loud or in writing. This focused approach prevents overwhelm and creates a tangible victory. You will be amazed at how tackling one of these foundational issues can have a ripple effect, loosening the grip of the other traps and building incredible momentum. Notice the subtle shifts in your confidence after just a few days of this targeted practice. Pay attention to the small moments of victory, the time a word came to you faster, the time you understood a joke, the time you spoke without overthinking. These are the true measures of your progress, the proof that your methods are working. Let us delve deeper into the architecture of these safe practice zones. Building an environment where you feel psychologically secure to make mistakes is perhaps the most critical skill you can develop. The foundation of this zone is the explicit permission you grant yourself to be imperfect. This is not a passive acceptance but an active invitation. You are not merely allowing mistakes, you are welcoming them as the most honest and useful feedback mechanism you have. This mindset transforms your practice from a performance into an investigation. A powerful technique to solidify this is what I call the 2-minute voice memo habit. Every day, without fail, open the voice recorder on your phone and speak in English for exactly 2 minutes. The topic is unimportant. You can describe the weather outside your window, talk about a dream you had, explain what you are working on, or even vent about a minor frustration. The rules are simple: you cannot stop recording, and you cannot delete and restart. You must push through the hesitations, the ms and ahs, the grammatical errors, and the moments where you forget a word. This exercise trains you to maintain the flow of speech under pressure, which is the exact skill you need in real conversations. After the 2 minutes are up, you have a choice. You can delete the memo immediately, its purpose already served. Or, if you are feeling brave, you can listen back to it. This is not for self-criticism, but for curious observation. Listen for patterns. Do you consistently hesitate before using a particular tense? Do you mispronounce the same word? This is not a list of your failures, it is a treasure map pointing to the specific areas that require your focused attention. This daily ritual builds a habit of courage and creates a tangible record of your progress over weeks and months. Another highly effective safe zone is what I termed shower conversations. The private, solitary space of your shower is the perfect place to simulate dialogues. Imagine you are explaining your job to a new colleague. Practice ordering food at a restaurant. Rehearse a difficult conversation you need to have. The running water provides a blanket of privacy, freeing you from any self-consciousness. Here, you can stumble, self-correct, and try different ways of phrasing things without any external judgment. This practice builds the neural pathways for spontaneous speech, making it increasingly likely that the right words will come to you when you are in an actual social situation. The ultimate goal of these exercises is to decouple the act of speaking from the fear of negative evaluation. By repeatedly exposing yourself to the act of producing English in a zero-consequence environment, you systematically desensitize yourself to the anxiety. The mental barriers begin to crumble because you are proving to yourself, day after day, that the worst-case scenario, making a mistake, is not a catastrophe but a routine part of the process. You are building fluency not by avoiding errors, but by developing the resilience to communicate through them. Now, let us turn our attention to the second trap with a new perspective. The grammar obsession trap often stems from a misunderstanding of what language truly is. We are taught to think of it as a fixed set of rules, like the code of a computer program. But in reality, language is a living, breathing, and evolving organism. It is a fluid tool for human connection, not a rigid mathematical formula. The most beautiful and effective conversations are often those that break the rules for the sake of meaning, emotion, or rhythm. Think about the last conversation you had in your native language. Did you consciously analyze the subject-verb agreement in each sentence? Did you pause to consider the definitive article before every noun? Almost certainly not. You spoke from intuition, from a deep-seated feel for what sounds correct. This is the state we must strive for in English. This intuitive sense, often called acquisition in language learning science, is developed not through memorization, but through massive exposure and practice. It is the difference between knowing the rule about the past perfect tense and instinctively feeling that I had already eaten is the right way to complete a story about a past event. To cultivate this intuition, we must change how we interact with English media. Instead of being a passive consumer, become an active detective. When you watch a film or listen to a song, do not just follow the plot or the melody. Actively listen for the structures you have been studying. Notice how native speakers consistently use contractions like I'm or don't. Observe how they often drop the G and ing endings in casual speech. Pay attention to the common phrases they use to agree, to disagree, or to show surprise. You are not just being entertained, you are collecting data on how the language truly operates in the wild. This detective work should extend to your reading as well. When you encounter a complex sentence that you understand perfectly, go back and analyze it not from a rule-based perspective, but from a pattern-based one. Ask yourself, what is the core idea here? How are the words arranged to convey that idea? Can I identify a useful chunk or phrase that I can use myself? This process helps you internalize the architecture of the language in a way that pure grammar study never can. You are learning to see the underlying patterns that make communication efficient and natural. The goal is to move grammar from the forefront of your mind to the background. It should become the supporting structure, not the main actor. When you speak, your primary focus must be on the person you are talking to and the message you want to share. The grammar should be there to serve that message, flowing automatically from the intuitive sense you have built through your detective work and practice. This is how you escape the trap of overthinking and start speaking a language that is not only correct but, more importantly, alive and connected. This is the final and most important step. It is the moment where knowledge must transform into a lasting, tangible change in your daily life. Understanding the traps is the map, but your consistent action is the journey. The path to fluency is paved not with grand, occasional gestures, but with the small, deliberate choices you make every single day. It is the 2-minute voice memo you record when you are tired, the conscious decision to focus on communication during a stressful conversation, and the gentle refusal to compare your Chapter 1 to someone else's Chapter 20. Your journey is unique and valuable. The world does not need another perfect English speaker, it needs your voice, your ideas, and your stories, shared with the confidence that comes from embracing progress over perfection. You have the tools. You understand the landscape. The only thing left is to begin, to stumble, to learn, and to rise again, each time with greater strength and clarity than before. Your fluency is not a distant destination on a far-off horizon. It is being built right now, in the choices you make today. Believe in the process, trust in your own capacity for growth, and take that first small, courageous step. The rest will follow. This has been our journey through the silent saboteurs of English fluency. Thank you for walking this path with me. Remember, your voice matters. Now, go and let the world hear it.